Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, and we are a membership-based community of senior-level women in retail. Today, I'm joined by Dana Medema, the president of North America at Revlon. Dana oversees the company's US and Canada business and brings more than 20 years of global leadership experience across Revlon, Philips, Colgate-Palmolive, and Clorox. Known for leading business transformations through innovation, operational excellence, and talent development, she's built an impressive career helping iconic brands grow while developing high-performing teams. Please help me welcome Dana. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Melissa. That was a very nice intro. Thank you.
Oh, of course. No, it's great to see you again. Dana actually spoke at one of our CEO events earlier this year. We were just talking about how it seems like it was a long time ago. It was only a couple months ago, but we're thrilled to chat with her again on this format on this podcast. So I'm thrilled that you're here, Dana, and I'm excited to talk to you about your leadership strategies, your career, all that good stuff. So I'm just going to jump in. As I mentioned in the bio, you've built a leadership career across such iconic brands like Colgate, Palmolive, Philips, Clorox, now Revlon. What would you say have been the most defining experiences that helped shape your leadership style today?
Yeah, let me start by just saying I feel really lucky. I've had the opportunity to, as you mentioned, work across different companies, a lot of different categories, and even geographies. And what I've found is that the solutions in all these places may be different, but there's a lot of fundamentals that are the same. And you
Mm,
get to take those fundamentals wherever you go. So let's start with the most important one, know your consumer. Build brands with a really clear and distinct point of view. Create teams that love commercial excellence as much as they love innovation. Like that's kind of common. So I get to
mm,
take all of that experience with me wherever I go. Now, in my career, I would say there was one, or there's been a handful of pivotal moments, but there's one I really want to talk to. And I spent 8 years in Europe. And that 8 years in Europe was just such a formative year for me because it really taught me how to lead in ambiguity. And so I always tell people I'm actually kind of comfortable being slightly always in the place of discomfort because of that time that I spent there. You learn to be agile in your thinking, but most importantly, you learn to adapt because
mm,
you have to slightly tweak some of the things you do for each of the countries that you show up in while still trying to create a scalable solution. And I would say that all of these things, all of that work experience, that Europe experience, I think that in a strange way, it set me up for Revlon because
wow,
yeah,
that's great.
because no, I got to come here and I think I've been pulling on all of those things because I think where the part where we're in with the Revlon is you needed to be what I'll call a transformative operator, right? You need to be as excited about the big bold ideas as you are about actually just getting stuff done. Like you need to pull up your sleeves and really get in there and make sure that the execution is as flawless as that big, bold idea that you had. So, once again, really fortunate. I've gotten to build a mosaic of experiences that I think really set me up for where I am now.
I love that mosaic of experiences. That's beautiful. I have heard that a lot. We do have some of our members have spent time in Europe and overseas. We have one member who spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, and she always talks about how that experience has been so helpful, just in sort of like not very tangible ways, but like just knowing that you're able to adapt if something happens. You can
Really?
quickly pivot. Being in a place where you're unfamiliar. So I love that so much. And I also love what you said about having both sides, the excitement of the ideas, but then also executing them. Those are two really important
100%.
things to work. You should be having that working in tandem to be a
Yes.
great leader. So jumping ahead to Revlon, where you are now, we talked a little bit about it, but what are your top priorities right now leading the business? Where do you see the greatest opportunities? Where do you see opportunities for impact? All that good stuff.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful organization and it starts and I'll say the first maybe there's 4 big areas of focus. And I think the first one will always start with rebuilding brand love. You have these like wonderful iconic brands, starting with the master brand of Revlon, that just needed the love again. They needed to have a fresh, modern kind of way of expressing them that's emotionally connected to today's consumer. So my number one priority is just really rebuilding that brand love. Once you've done that, the world has moved on. I always say that not only has marketing changed, but the retail environment has changed so much. And so, really, how do we make sure that our products are not just available, but available in a way that is really frictionless? Like, we can't make it cannot be difficult for a consumer to search, to buy, to search again, whether that's buying online or offline. How do we make that as easy as possible for the consumer to really find our products, search our products, but ultimately buy? That's probably number two, really making that process as easy. And I think I mentioned up front that, sales is not just marketing has changed, sales has changed. And we need to part of my role is making sure that sales is ready for this changing environment where a retailer is not just get your stuff in distribution. If you think of just 10 years ago, even, it was like, get your stuff in distribution. But now it's retailers are media platforms, they are conversion platforms, they are discovery platforms. That has fundamentally changed the way you show up from a sales strategy perspective. And then I think then the third thing I've really been working on is how do we leverage technology? And I know you can't have any conversation without someone using the word AI, but I think it's not just AI for AI's sake. It's more like how do we use technology and AI to make it easier to get stuff done, to make it easier for our people to translate an insight into an action. You don't just buy technology for technology's sake. You buy technology to hopefully make it easier for your teams to get things done, which leaves me then with my last and most important. I probably should have started there, which is my one of my biggest priorities is just building the team. Like we need to be laser like all of us, wherever you're at, should be laser like focused on building the next generation of talent. And that's why freeing them up, giving them that oxygen to learn, part of that is where technology comes into play. You give them that technology, you can then free them up to really then be able to work on reinventing the brands, be able to work on next generation commerce, be able to work on just even, developing themselves. So those are probably the 4 big areas that I'm really prioritizing and really focused on.
That's great. I love that. That's so succinct. And I love what you're saying about technology and AI and how it's really a tool to help, to help people. It's not something to be afraid of, you know.
I want people to be as excited about the problem they're solving as they are about technology, because people get excited about the technology and they're like, "Oh, this is really, really interesting." But you really should do is focus on what's the problem that I'm trying to solve or the pain point I'm trying to solve, and what's the role that technology or AI can play in trying to solve that. I think if you flip it that way,
Yes, that is great.
then it'll be less scary.
I'm gonna jump ahead, 'cause especially because you were just talking about teams, which is such an important part of leadership. And you've been recognized, as I said earlier, for your ability to develop strong teams, especially through periods of change and transformation, which is basically all the time when it comes to retail. So, can you talk a little bit more specifically, maybe, about some of the things that you do to, identify, grow, and retain talent?
Yeah, and so why don't we take each one of those buckets? I think
Sure.
when it's funny, for me, when I look to identify talent, I think it's what I do is I go beyond that, "Hey, have they done this job before? Or have they worked in this industry?" I think once again, if you go back to my career, I've worked in a lot of different across a lot of different categories, a lot of different companies, and as I said, that a lot of times the business fundamentals are the same. The solution might be different, but the business fundamentals. So I would say one of the first things I do is go beyond, have they worked in beauty, for example? No,
Mm.
I wanna know really, where are they at and what I call them kinda like the 4 Cs, if you wanna call it that, which is this a person that's curious? As we're talking, do they look really curious about the space, the brands? Are they committed? Like, is this someone who's actually gonna come in and not be too big for any role? Like, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves
Yep.
even if it means, packing products into a box to get sent to, some research group or something. And then are they coachable? We all need to be coached. I'm still getting coached. And so you want someone that is going to be coachable. And then the last thing, especially in fast-paced moving industries like ours, as are they going to be a change agent? Like change is the one constant right now. And so you need someone that's going to be that has that agility to kind of realize that change is going to happen and I have to be able to adjust to that. So that's what I really look like when I'm trying to identify the talent. So let's
Yep.
just now you've got the right person in. I then look at how do we grow them? And
Yep.
for me, the fastest way to grow any person is to get them as close to the decision making as possible. Like,
Mm.
let people be right on the front line of making those decisions. Let them make the decisions, give them the opportunity to step up and really address real business problems, real issues, and hold them accountable because otherwise they're not going to learn. Now, will you put them in front of a really junior person in front of like the board on day one? Absolutely not. But there are opportunities to start getting them comfortable with really owning that decision making, owning that impact, really seeing like what's the result of the actions that they took. Because then I think it gets to then your last one, which is about retention. Because
Mhm.
the key to retaining people is empowering people. If
Oh,
people feel like they have a real stake in driving the business, and you're recognizing, their contributions, then that's the power to stay. Like, this is a company that's invested in me, so I will invest in the company. So those are my kind of approaches. So I hope others will find that useful.
that is very useful. I love it. It's so organized and it's so true. I mean, I guess the problem though is trying to identify those qualities that you mentioned earlier. That's the challenge.
Absolutely.
But once you get them in there, then it's probably so exciting, I bet, to like kind of see them grow. And I love the idea of putting them, in the room with other people. I mean, that's really where you learn. I mean, it's the same way you learn anything is by doing. So that's awesome.
And what I would recommend is what
Yeah.
people can do, because you're right, trying to find it's easy to say, "Oh, look, this person went to that school, they worked at this."
Right.
That's
Or,
fine.
or that they have subtle things that you're trying to find, it's
Exactly,
fun.
or they have this skill set, but what you can start to do is, how would someone know if am I a curi like, how would someone assess my curiosity? What makes me curious? Okay, maybe, "Oh, I see this is a person that actually they tried to learn this new language, or they've tried to learn this
Right.
sport." Like, there's ways to feel like you can try to suss out that, "Oh, wow, they are a person that's constantly curious," or they've leaned in to learning some, piece of technology that they, were super uncomfortable with before, and now they've leaned into it. So I think those
Yeah.
are kind of like the ways you can start to kind of probe and
And
coachable.
drill down.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
drill down and coachable is like, when has someone told you that you weren't great at something? And then how did you handle that? What did you do
Mm,
about it? Because
mm.
not everything we do is great. And so being, able to kind of, ask people these kind of probing questions, that'll get you a feel for like, oh, wait a minute, this is a person that is open to feedback, takes the feedback, actions the feedback, and realizes that this is we're always developing, we're always building as leaders.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm actually gonna jump ahead too, because I feel like this
Yeah.
next question kinda ties in well with what we were just talking about, and that is around mentorship. I know mentorship has played an important part in your career. You've been mentored, you're also a mentor to others. We always talk about mentorship here at Women in Retail. So, why is it important, and what are some, like, what are some best practices around it maybe, or
Yeah. And so look, I love this question. And I think that what my first answer will be is, don't think of mentoring just as the big formal programs. And don't think of mentoring only as, let me find this really senior person that I really admire. That's important. You should
Right.
definitely, if your company has a formal mentoring program and you're interested, lean in. If you see someone you admire, definitely reach out to them and lean in. But what I would say is there's also a lot of informal. There's a lot of peer to peer. There's a lot of people below you getting feedback, because for me, where I have grown the most is when people were brutally honest with me. And sometimes that's going to come from some of your cross-functional peers, some of the people that report to you. We have people who can give you that really honest feedback. Where have you done things well? Where have you not done things well? I think having someone, because what happens is we all hearing your strengths is easy. That's exciting. You're like, oh, thank you. This is great. But it's when someone really wants to talk to you about your blind spots that is
Mm.
very powerful. Like I can still remember, and I saw this woman just the other day, and I think I was an associate brand manager, and she gave me some feedback about facial expression, like during a
Mm.
meeting, oh, that always stuck with me to watch that. And I saw her, and this is like 20, 30 years later, and I'm like, I won't say her name, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I don't know if you even remember this. You gave me this feedback." I think she was like a marketing director on another team. And I think it's that kind of more informal feedback that sticks with you. And as
Mm.
long as you're a coachable individual, it's powerful because then you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. I need to kind of work on that." So I would say my approach then when people come to me to get mentored is I try to do the same thing. Let me be as candid as possible. Let me be as helpful as possible. My goal as a mentor is not just to find you that next job. My goal as a mentor is to keep developing you as an individual
Yep.
and helping you to also see that. And so I think that the mentoring should be both the formal, but you should also look for the informal. And then you should also look for it across levels. And then I will say that slightly different than mentorship, but I just think it's important to call out is sponsorship.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think that now that is critical. And I think this is one thing I'll say to every single leader is make sure that all of us are creating visibility for the next generation of leaders.
Mm.
Like someone pulled us up. I guarantee I know I can name tons of people who have reached out a hand to pull that have pulled me up. And now we need to do that same thing. Put that hand back and pull that next person forward. Give them that visibility. Let that talent be recognized, I think is so critical.
I love that. That's such a big part of who we are too at Women in Retail. It's all about lifting people up and thinking about the next generation, always thinking about like a succession plan. All that stuff is super.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about. I always struggle with this one because I'm like, do people, is this kind of a silly question? But I feel like it's really
Eh,
important. Let's talk about work-life balance
yeah.
or what you do to help you stay grounded, while you're leading at a senior level. I mean, there's so much to leading. It's not just leading, it's almost like how you live, a whole we call people holistic leaders. It's everything inside of work, outside of work. So kind of what's your philosophy, I guess, around that?
And look, I think this is I actually think it's a great question
Yeah.
because I'll start by saying this is I think work-life balance is personal. And I say that I mean when I what I mean by that is each person is different. So what work-life balance is for me is going to be different than somebody else. And my views have also changed over time. Work-life balance for someone who has a newborn is going to be different than work-life balance for someone who's, in the high school age or college age, or even if you have no kids, but you've got maybe a parent that isn't feeling well. So
Right.
life balance, one, is very personal, and then two, is very different depending on the life stage. And so mine has changed over time, and I
Mm.
would say that part of what I've realized over time is that it's okay to not always be in balance. Like, there's gonna be some times where the work is just a lot, and you're all in, and it's all-encompassing, and what I would say is that's okay for a period of time. You can't sustain that forever. So I
Yeah.
think you need
So
to
true.
I think you need to decide, okay, wait a minute, when am I going to then like this is a finite period of time for this 5 days. It's getting ready for X big meeting and I'm really going to be all in and some other things are going to have to take a back burner. Great. So I think having that kind of openness to see that sometimes the balance is not there is important. The other thing that I think has developed for me over time is really understanding my values and my priorities.
Mhm.
Because I think you do have to set boundaries and you do have to decide what's really, really, really important. Like I can say that I'm fairly confident I did not make every one of my daughter's tennis matches. Like try to make every high school tennis match that tends to start at like 3 o'clock on a weekday. Never going to happen. However, what I was going to make sure is that when it was the senior night and it's the last night and all the parents are there, I'm making that time. I'm blocking it on the schedule and I'm making that time. So I do think you need to figure out what are you going to hold sacred.
Yeah.
Eh, those things you just need to, like, really ring fence and make sure that no one falls you don't sacrifice those. For example, and then I think there's small ones and there's big ones, and for me, what I'll call a small one is that I do find a lot of relief in exercise, and so
Yeah.
everyone here knows that on 5 o'clock on Fridays, I have my trainer. Like, that's my way of ending the week. I have my trainer, and
Right. That's great.
I try to hold that sacred, no meetings at 5 on the Friday, unless it's really, really urgent, of course, and so I do think those are the small things that I think that you can do to really figure out how you create balance in a world that sometimes is not gonna feel so balanced.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny that you should talk about that. It's reminding me. Did you ever hear of Marvin Ellison, the CEO of Lowe's?
Yeah, I mean,
He's a
I know him, I haven't heard of him, but I
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
the story.
I heard him speak once, and he said that at the beginning of the school year, this is a couple years ago when I don't know how old his kids are, but in September, him and his assistant would go through his agenda and his kids' agendas, like because usually the school calendar is like pretty much set,
Yeah,
and he would just build his meetings around like the most important things, like the end of the year, stuff
I
like
love
that. I
that.
remember thinking that was so I don't know, it just made a lot of sense to me, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I would have heard that before. That's clearly more organized than probably what I did,
Yeah.
but I love that. I'm gonna pass that knowledge on to somebody else.
Yeah, I remember he said he color coded it, and it was just awesome. I loved it, especially from a dad, to hear dads
Yeah,
talking.
of course.
So, in closing, what are you most looking forward to? I mean, this is one of my favorite questions. What are you looking forward to professionally, personally, as we round out the year? Believe it or not, we're already talking about holidays, 2026.
Gosh.
So, what are you thinking about?
Yeah. So look, I think professionally, it's pretty simple for me. We have done an incredible amount of foundational work to make our brand stronger, make our innovation pipeline stronger, create and build the relationships with our retailers. All of that foundational work to modernize the organization has, I mean, it's never done, but we have done a lot of that. And now, what I really want to see is how do we take that strategy and start to really see it come to this visible momentum. And we're starting to see, we're seeing
Yeah.
those green shoots. And so, like, what I really want for myself and for my team is for them to be super proud of all the work and excited about this next chapter of Revlon, because I think we have such a wonderful set of brands, and it's I feel privileged and honored to be leading them. And so, look, I want people inside and outside Revlon to really say, like, "Whoa, wait a minute, that's a company I want to work for because it's a company with momentum, it's a company with ambition, and they have a clear point of view on where the future of beauty is going." So that is really professionally. Then on the personal side, my daughter's getting ready for her first year of college.
Oh,
So, I'm actually there's part of me that's obviously getting ready to be very sad, but I'm also looking forward to her entering this next chapter. It's
oh
such an
yeah.
exciting time. Like, it's such it's like that's your first not your first, but it's like such a key pivotal moment in your growth and your learning, and you go from being teen to young adult that, I'm so proud and can't wait to part of me is sad, obviously, to send her off, but I'm super excited for this next chapter for her.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a very exciting year. It's an exciting year for Revlon. It's an exciting year for me on the personal front, and
Yeah.
looking forward to the next couple of months.
That sounds great. What a great year. What great things that you have to look forward to. It was so great chatting with you, Dane. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll be able to connect again in real life at some point soon. And good luck with everything in 2026. Thank you so much for being here on Women in Retail Talks.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. It was such a pleasure to chat with you, and thank you for the privilege of getting to have this discussion.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, SiriusXM's Pandora, YouTube, and YouTube Music. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate, review, and subscribe. Lastly, if you're a female retail leader interested in joining our community at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, visit womeninretail.com/apply. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.